All right, it is 4:02, so I'm going to go ahead and commence our information session today. So like I said, and as previously mentioned, anyone that does join in a little later, they should have the ability to watch the webinar after as the recorded webinar. So any let's say the opening statement, if it was missed, that's completely fine. You will have the access to it just at a later time. So to start the webinar session, I would want to welcome everyone that is joining us today. I know that a lot of people are joining us from outside of British Columbia and also outside of Canada. So many thanks to them, because I know it might be a very different time for a lot of our folks that are attending today's information session. So many thanks to them. My name is Shrech Moli, and I am the Registrar of Ashton College. And I'm actually very delighted to see you all today and do appreciate your time. I do have the pleasure of having our instructor as well as our Director of IMCD programs, Mr. Ron McKay today. Ron, if you want to say hi to everyone.
Hello, everybody.
All right, thank you very much. So just before we begin our information session today, I wanted to highlight a few key things which might be helpful to you as you move along on this information session. So I wanted to highlight that we are currently using the Zoom platform. It is quite a novel platform for a lot of our attendees, as well as us as the administrators of the college. It is a fairly new platform, but it is very efficient, and I hope that you're able to participate fully through this Zoom platform. So if you have any questions, you will find a Q&A tab at the bottom of this window. So if you just quickly look at this window, you'll find a Q&A tab where you can ask any questions that you have. Now, having said that, we will be going into your specific questions as well as admission-related inquiries closer to the end of the webinar. So we will be dedicating about 20 to 25 minutes to any questions that you have. And the reason behind that is that you give your undivided attention to the information that Mr. Ron McKay would be presenting to you in today's webinar, because that would be equally important as you become future applicants to the program, or if you've already applied to the program, then this information will be very critical and important to you. So please do take in as much information as you can. And then closer to, like I said, about 20 to 25 minutes towards the end of the information session, we would be looking into any questions that you have. So how the question and answers would continue is that students would essentially have the ability to type in their questions in the Q&A session, the tab, as well as the chat is active, and you can type in your questions in the chat as well. Also, for anyone that has microphone access, they would be able to ask their questions live in person. Now, having said that, I wanted to emphasize that we would not be answering any specific particular applicant inquiries. And this is because of the fact that this is an open platform and it is currently being recorded and it would be published on our website. So we do value your privacy, and therefore we wouldn't be delving into any particular application related questions. If you do have those questions and any questions that relate to your application alone, then what we encourage you that you do is that you send us your inquiries at info@ashtoncollege.ca. Once again, the email address is info@ashtoncollege.ca, or you can call us at 604-899-0803 extension 196. And once again, not while the information session is active, because our information services coordinator, Rita, would be answering your questions during the information session. So anytime from Monday to Friday from 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. Our phone lines are open and you can get in touch with us, or you can just send us your inquiry at info@ashtoncollege.ca. This information will also be posted in the chat box. So if you have not had the chance to note it down, that is completely fine. You should be able to find this information in the chat box, and we'll ensure that it is posted 2 or 3 times during the length of the information session for you to make a note of it. All right, so with having said that, and without further ado, I would want to pass on the microphone to our Director of IMCD Programs, as well as our instructor, Mr. Ron McKay. And Ron, I will be in the background, but I do wish you all the very best for the information session, and to all our participants today that are joining us, please do make note of all the information that is being presented here today. So all the very best to everyone.
Okay, welcome to everybody. I realize that you have probably already accessed the material, or at least the overview of the program. Let me to start to explain. The regulatory body, ICCRC, has identified at the present time 18 competencies that the education provider is to cover with you. Of those 18 competencies, 13 of them are examinable. When I say examinable, I mean that if you successfully complete our program, you will be examined on 13 competencies on the entry to practice examination. If I'm to do an overview of our program, our first module and our last module start with 60 hours. Our first module is Principles of Immigration, Administrative Law, and Admissibility. So in the title, those are 3 competencies that you are going to be examined on. The focus in the first module is usually into the concepts or the principles. What we have found is usually that given that module 1 is an introduction, most persons usually are fine with module 1. However, as they transition into module 2, some may have some difficulty as we're moving away, we move more away from concepts, and we have to primarily deal with the content of the competencies, such that at our modules 2 through 6, it is very heavy in regards to content related in regards to the competencies. There is, over the years, they have managed to expand the materials in each of these competencies, as well as immigration, as time has gone on, has managed to grow those areas, and it requires additional training for those individuals in the course. So we start at module 2, which takes you from a foreign national wanting to gain temporary entry into Canada. And what that means is, for temporary entry, is that foreign national either just becoming a visitor, becoming a student, or intending to be a business visitor or to work in Canada. And with that, you'll usually see under working within Canada, it's usually going to be a business visitor, or individuals that may be LMIA exempt, and there are programs that we'll introduce to you that include the working holiday programs or international experience, Canada class, those that may be dealing with free trade agreements. And then it's followed by an area that has grown over the recent years, labor market impact assessments, and in the areas where the government is working with the employer as the applicant to see whether or not they would issue an LMIA, or the labor market impact assessment, to be able to facilitate foreign nationals temporary entry to Canada on work permit status. So you see, that's the first step down the road, going from a foreign national into temporary. As we move forward, we then move into an area that I'll call permanent entry into Canada, or being able to gain permanent resident status or immigration status to Canada. The Canadian government primarily deals in dealing with this area, sees it as having three large components to it. One is family class, which is based on that there is a relationship with the individual or in a sponsorship. The second type is under what we'll call the economic streams, which is that they're primarily going to have worked here or have previously worked here, and it's based on their ability to successfully economically establish in Canada. And the third prong of immigration that they're looking at would be in regards to refugee status, making a refugee claim and being sponsored or being sponsored as a refugee. So those are the three larger areas. So moving forward, in Module 3, we introduce you to that initial concept of gaining permanent entry to Canada, then taking a look at the federal economic programs related to the economic streams, which can be either as, let's say, as a worker stream or under a business stream. That's then followed by dealing with the various provinces, because one area of immigration that has expanded over the last several years has been in regards to each of the provincial programs, whether it be Quebec or any of the other provinces, in regards to being able to, they have a role now, or an increased role, in regards to persons gaining immigration to Canada. At Module 4, we follow up with that family class category. And along with that, we will, that section also deals with a category called humanitarian compassionate, Canadian citizenship, and residency obligations, which is to be able to maintain one's permanent resident status within Canada. At Module 5, we deal with refugee and protected persons. And Refugee 6, we deal with enforcement and appeals. What happens when a person, when a person is refused? What appeal mechanisms do they have, whether it is to the Immigration Refugee Board? And there are 4 sections of the Immigration Refugee Board: the Immigration Division, the Immigration Appeal Division, the Refugee Protection Division, and the Refugee Appeal Division, as well as then dealing with matters related to federal court and appeals to see what avenues you have in the case of refusal and seeking reconsideration. Once we get to modules 7, 8, and 9, they are, the length of the time is slightly small, is reduced. Most of the modules from 2 to 6 are usually going to be 56 hours long. Once we get to modules 7, 8, and 9, we've reduced them. Module 7 gives you sort of a halfway mark review, dealing with doing a review of the previous modules in regards to what you do in regards to representing a client, as well as providing communication or submissions to the various government bodies in regards to those applications. Module 8 deals with the regulatory body, the professional conduct, ethics, bylaws, everything that is the regulatory body, whether we're dealing with ICCRC or whether we're dealing with the transition to the College of Immigration and Citizenship Consultants, followed by their regulations. We will be dealing with the Code of Professional Ethics, what the requirements are for registration to ICCRC, what the requirements are if you are dealing with complaints and discipline processes as well. That module is then followed with Module 9. Module 9 is rather unique because it deals with what we'll call practice management or operating a business in regards to an immigration practice. As such, this module deals with the areas of the immigration practice that are not examined on the entry to practice exam. What happens though is that ICCRC will provide their own what I'll call practice management courses to review these areas to ensure that you understand what it is to set up your practices on the day-to-day operation. The last module deals with immigration consulting, review, research, and exam preparation. So we actually start with an overview and we end with an overview. The explanation that I would give you is that when we first start the program, it's like we're showing you the complete picture of everything. as we're going through each module, we're concentrating on a different zone of that picture so that you have a better understanding of what it is that you're looking at. And then at the end, we come back in the last module to once again take a look at not only the complete picture, but also each of the different zones or modules that you've dealt with up until that point. So you must also understand that there is some overlap in regards to the modules as they move forward, such that you begin to see how the pieces of this puzzle sort of interlock or interrelate. So as you're going along, you're sort of going, I understand, hopefully temporary. And if you don't, it's still going to be revisited later from the aspect of how it interlocks or interrelates with the following modules thereafter. So don't be all alarmed if you might not gain the initial concept. It will be covered later. There is some repetition, but you also have to understand that let's say that in a module, if we have 15 pieces of the puzzle, and you might not be gaining the concept of one piece of the puzzle, we still have to proceed on to actually deal with all 15 of those pieces so that you sort of understand that module or the zone and has it interrelates to the total picture related to immigration and citizenship. As we move forward, the deadline is July 31st for you to register with our program. As long as you have registered with our program by that date, we can then place you even into another module, whether it's full-time or part-time, whether it's in August or September. We have until December of 2022 within which to complete our program with you. Although it would depend on whether you're full-time or part-time, I would usually expect that most of you would be completed by either the end of this year or by mid next year, hopefully at the latest. With that, we are also introducing other aspects to assist our students in moving forward. We're introducing something called an Immigration Practitioner Zone. It may be introduced, I believe, possibly in October. We are introducing a series of certificate programs. We've already introduced two thus far. One deals with a certificate in regards to advocacy before the Immigration Refugee Board as relates to the Immigration Division and the Immigration Appeal Division. We've also, the second immigration certificate program deals with appearing before, once again, the Immigration Refugee Board and dealing with the Refugee Protection Division and dealing with the Refugee Appeal Division in more detail. Those are supplemental training beyond what is presently in our current IMCD programs. We are also going to be introducing a temporary module that will probably more deal with the addition of free trade agreements such as the new NAFTA, CETA in regards to Europe, as well as those processes related to labor market impact assessments. We are, and the third prong that we are also dealing with is we do what we'll call continuing professional development seminars during the course of a year. In the past, we've usually tried to do at least 4 continuing professional development seminars that used to be 4 hours long. And the key is if you go that there's 4 of those times 4, it's 16 hours. So if you're successful in completing our program and successful in completing the entry to practice exam, thereafter the normal expectation on an annual basis is that ICCRC or the college at this time usually expects you to complete at least 16 hours of continuing professional development related to a number of the areas that if you were to go back to the IMCD program, you would see us providing updates in regards to areas such as temporary residence, could be the economic categories, could be provincial categories, refugees, family class. Some of those 13 components so that you have the latest information that has been updated by immigration on an ongoing basis, as the regulatory body expects you to complete normally at this time at least 16 hours. So for the remainder of this year, we're presently putting together a series of continuing professional development that would be able to assist those who have possibly graduated from the program. We had in the past, also last year, we also completed a series of 10 workshops to also assist you in regards to your studies related to the various components. So not only do you receive instruction from the instructor for the module as you're going through the program, but we are also providing the students with access in regards to some of those workshops as well. That pretty much summarizes all of the aspects that we're dealing with in regards to the immigration or current immigration program. As afterwards, what will end up happening is that there will be another education provider starting in January of next year. However, we still are, for our students that have registered with us, they are able to complete our program. ICCRC has indicated that our graduates will have 4 attempts at the entry to practice exam within a 3-year time period. Now, what I would recommend though is that if you happen to be unsuccessful in the first module, that you do come back to basically to visit us, so that hopefully with either the workshops or continuing professional development, that we can provide you with an update in regards to some of the areas that you might not have been successful on in regards to the entry to practice exam. With that, are there any questions? Shrey?
Yes. Hello. Hello.
Okay, let me go to some other questions first of all. Do we need to work with an immigration or complete hours with them before you get your license? At this time, the answer is, for our program, no. If you complete our program, what will end up happening is that will, at this time, qualify you to be able to write the entry to practice exam. Now, ICCRC has spoken about eventually introducing a practice management session that they would instruct. However, they have not proceeded there yet. That section might happen before you actually take the entry to practice exam. However, the model that they have thus far is that if you successfully complete our program, that you immediately go to write the entry to practice exam. Is it 16 hours an exam or just 16 hours of study? In regards to what I'm talking about, in regards to our program is 500 hours. The expectation is for the IMCD program, you're completing 500 hours. The 16 hours that I was referring to is after you, if you write the entry to practice exam, their expectation is that you have to understand is that education for consultants doesn't end when you complete our program. Their expectation is that you will complete ICCRC's practice management courses, however they're identified, and that at the same time, in moving forward, the bar that they're expecting for most people to complete on an annual basis is 16 hours of additional training related to whatever areas of specialization that you're going to be choosing to pursue. So that's separate from the IMCD program. And that thus far is 16 hours of, it's not really study, it's attending a seminar type of a thing. So we'll provide that to you. Full-time and part-time difference in weekly sessions. Shrey, do you want to address that?
Sure, I can certainly address that. So And thank you once again, Ron. That was a very great information session. I hope that all our attendees today were able to catch on and make notes of the information that we were attending today. So between the full-time and the part-time program, essentially it is the same content just spread out differently. So for example, in a full-time program, our students should be able to commit to classes Monday to Friday. So the classes would be each day. You're looking at 4 hours of class time each day for a total of 20 hours per week. The part-time program would host classes normally in the evening and twice a week. So you're looking at approximately 10 hours of classes per week. The full-time program is 6 months in duration, while as the part-time program goes on for approximately 52 weeks, which is 1 year. And it is usually designed for individuals that have other priorities as well as are currently working, or working more than one job. So it should be catered. It is generally catered to those individuals. Perfect. Now, in regards to the tuition of between the two, it is exactly the same because it is only a difference of format between how many hours you would be spending in class between the full-time and the part-time program. So there's no difference in either the admission requirements or the tuition fee or the application fee, apart from the fact that one is a full-time program and the other being a part-time format.
In regard to, are you going to offer the course after September? At the present time, we're offering it, I believe, in August, and I believe the last offerings are in September, unless, of course, we get a group of students that do wish to have it offered thereafter. I know that we had looked at October and November, but thus far we're looking at, Shrey can correct me if I'm wrong, I believe September would be the last offerings that we would have.
Yes, that is actually accurate and correct. So currently we are looking at the upcoming offerings. So there was July 20th IMCD full-time program that started today. And now we have the other one in, and we can quickly look at the dates here. So all the dates are currently posted on our website. So you should be able to find exactly either the full-time program format or the part-time program format posted. So I'm just going to reference the website right here because that is does contain the most up-to-date information. So any of our future applicants, they should be looking at the next full-time offering of August 17th. And it is currently on our website. So if you want to apply for that, I would suggest that you do it as soon as possible. Currently, we will not be offering anything beyond September at this time. So September would mark the last entry points for our students. Now, having said that, as you know, that with the ICCRC rules and regulations, all documents, all enrollments are to be met at a certain date. So that is why we would only be taking in new applications as far as July 24th, and that also includes any supplemental documentation for those applications. It has to be in by July 24th. So once again, this information is quite critical because this would, of course, apply to all applications as well as your pertaining applications. So once again, because of the ICCRC deadlines, all applications are supposed to be in no later than Friday, July 24th. And that also includes any pertaining documents. Now, having said that, if anyone that is attending today is attending for the upcoming July 28th class, which is the IMCD online part-time class, please kindly note that today would be the last day for your applications to be in. And this is only for July 28th because it does commence next week. So today would be the last day to apply for that program. But if anyone is wanting to apply for August 17th or September 1st, then, or September 14th being the full time, then the last date for all applications as well as supporting documentation is Friday, July 24th.
Okay, I'll take some of the other questions. Basically, can you schedule your own session time? No. What ends up happening is that normally we provide you with the schedule, whether it's in the morning from 8:30 to 12:30 or 9 to 11. In regards to the evening classes, normally they're from, let's say, 5 to 8 o'clock. What happens is that, is it the same teacher for all the courses? The answer is no. What we try to do here at Ashton is we have a faculty pool that do have areas of specialization into a number of the different areas. And we try to have you have a number of the instructors. Part of the reason is that this isn't a popularity contest. We've usually identified the instructors based on what their knowledge is in regards to a number of the areas and their teaching experience in that area. So we're trying to provide you with a diverse learning experience with a number of different faculty members. As otherwise, we believe that if you're just simply with one instructor, that you're sort of getting their perspective. And the other aspect that you have to also understand is no one instructor is an expert in every single area of the immigration law. And as such, that's why we do identify persons that do have expertise, hopefully, in that area that they are going to be instructing. Is there a test at the end of each module? Yes. We do have, previously when we had developed the program, there were exams for the first 6 modules, but not for the last 4. As we've moved forward and we've been dealing with ICCRC has requested that we try to focus more on the entry to practice exam and your ability. And the only way that we can do that is by providing you with a final exam. Now, unlike the entry to practice exam, it is not a 3-hour exam. We usually have the instructors schedule a final exam that could be an hour or an hour and a half long. So it's 60 to 90 minutes, usually long, and it's usually comprised of anywhere from 30 to 50 questions. Let me just see. Shrey, did you want to take?
Yeah, a couple of questions here. So for anyone that is going to be attending our program from outside of British Columbia, then they would have to sort of convert, what sort of time it would be in their either their province of residence or their country. So all time that is posted on the schedule is PST, which is Pacific Standard Time. So for example, if someone is located in Ontario, then to my understanding, it would be 3 hours. They're 3 hours ahead of BC time. So let's say if your class is at 5 p.m. Vancouver time or Pacific Standard Time, then if you're located in Ontario, you would most likely be attending the class from 8 p.m. onwards. But then once again, of course, it's a very quick search on Google that what is going to be the time like, because of course daylight saving also plays a factor into that equation. But any time that is quoted from the college, because we are located in British Columbia, would be PST.
One of the other questions was, how many hours should we expect to dedicate to the program beyond the 20 hours of full-time hours for assignments and tests? Other than just considering the assignments and tests and the time for those, usually in regards to the readings as prescribed and taking into consideration the assignments or whatnot, I've seen that most students have usually indicated it varies between 10 to 20 hours at the very least. Because as you're moving forward, if you're attending the webinar, it's helpful for you to have actually done the readings or to have familiarized yourself with some of the materials before, such that what will end up happening is that it allows you to advance more. Whereas if you're just expecting to, hi, I'm showing up and going to be passive and let the instructor teach, what ends up happening is that sometimes you're not pushing the envelope in regard to some of the more advanced ideas, and you may find yourself stuck at some of the more basic concepts. So the whole idea is, in regards to our program, is not only are you seeing what areas that you are expected to be covered with the instructor, but also taking a look at some of the readings, as well as the readings that are uploaded by the readings or PowerPoints that are uploaded by your instructors, so that you can also take a look at that. So you can also do some additional research and sort of push the envelope a little bit more. Whereas usually we find those students that are a little bit more passive may find themselves weighed down or slowed down a little bit in regards to taking a look at being worried more about the concepts as others may be trying to go, hi, we're looking at something other than the concept, into actually the practices and procedures, and trying to push that envelope as well.
Yes. All right, perfect. Thank you, Ron.
Now, the outlines and
yes.
the outlines and syllabus are uploaded for each of the programs.
Yes.
So when you receive that, you will receive the outlines, and we do have the syllabi as well. And what will happen is each instructor usually will review their syllabi to sort of cover the topics that they're going to deal with during your module, and they'll also provide that to you.
Yes, thank you. All right. Now, in relation to any question pertaining to someone's education, as I do see a couple of questions, I would say please do get in touch with our admissions team. You can email your inquiry to info@ashtoncollege.ca, or there is the phone number listed as well, so you can have a personal conversation, as well as we may even seek further clarification. For example, we might ask you for your documents because we might want to look at it before we can answer any questions. So once again, if there's any pertaining questions specific to your application or what you have previously studied or maybe gained via work experience, then do please get in touch with us via email or phone call.
Usually for the entry to practice exam, the initial fee, I believe, is $600. For the second or subsequent attempts, I believe it's at $500. However, you have to basically refer to ICCRC in regards to that. The idea at this time, or the model that ICCRC presently has, is that if you've completed our program, if you are successful in passing the entry to practice exam, at this time they're saying, yes, you can open your own consultancy. Now, there is one area that might change in, and that's because they're looking at eventually introducing a two-tiered system, which is that they are looking at providing a more, I'll say, a second tier in regards to appearing before the IRB, and they've been looking at that. Now, they have not as yet introduced that, but they have been talking about that. As the current model is, if you complete our education program, if you complete successfully the entry to practice exam, at this time, yes, you can then thereafter opening your own consultancy. One of the aspects that I'll say to you is, do not open your practice if you have just completed our program. Graduating our program in no way provides you with a license to practice. Because one of the aspects that I'll say that changed last year and is in the process of changing is that there is a new Immigration and Citizenship Consultant Act, and it's very clear that unless you have your license from the College of Immigration and Citizenship Consultants, or ICCRC, you are not legally allowed to practice. And if they find it, there are fines and penalties that can be imposed against you.
Perfect. Thank you, Ron. Now, there is a question about the full-time schedule. I just see here posted on the chat. So for full-time schedule, to repeat, it would be Monday to Friday, 5 days a week. And students should expect to be online 4 hours each day, and that is 5 days a week, so a total of 20 hours. Now, the next question is in relation to I believe it is something with regards to auditing a class. So unlike universities, unfortunately, we don't have class auditing at the moment. So classes are only available to students that are registered in the program. And then they follow a sequence where students go from module 1 all the way to module 10. And module 10 basically is a culminating module where the entire information that is provided in the program is sort of brought together in that module. So it's a very regulated sequential program, so as to speak, that follows prerequisites. And in the program, you'd be looking at a prerequisite that students must be able to pass and module 1 in order to move on to other parts of the program. And before taking module 10, because as I mentioned that it's a culminating module where the entire program is summarized, students have to ensure that they've completed and successfully passed modules 1 through 9. Now, when I am speaking on the topic, I think this would also be a good time to explain what are some of the requirements as an institution, as an education provider. So students are required to meet our attendance requirement, which meaning that there should be a minimum attendance of 65% in each module and an overall program attendance of 75%. That is the bare minimum that we do require. So of course, having a full attendance will only benefit you as our students. Now, when it comes to grading, there is a minimum passing grade of 65% that is required in every module, and an overall GPA of 70% that is required in the IMCD program. So once again, it is a rigorous training in the field of immigration. So students should, once you become a student, you should look into having sort of a rigorous training in the program and be willing to put in the time and the effort and the work that is required for your success. So once again, 65% as a passing for every module, and then an overall requirement of 70% in terms of a cumulative GPA in the program. Attendance would be a minimum of 65% in each module and an overall 75% in the program.
Okay.
So,
a couple more. Will there be an internship with a certified immigration consultant as part of the, as I would say, as part of the program? Once again, the answer is no. Although what we are looking at now with something called the Immigration Practitioner Zone is to establish some form of mentorship with a certain number of our graduates to try to assist them. This is still being formulated at the present time. In regards to after you complete the IRCCC exam, is the exam in BC? The answer is it was. Right now, ICCRC is going through trying to provide the exam online at the present time, given the COVID-19 situation. They will be making, what is happening is they are trying to make special efforts because they did delay I believe it was the April exam, and it's going to be finally conducted at the end of July. And they are trying to revamp the way that they are offering the exams so that if the COVID-19 situation does continue, that they will have a means of being able to examine you online. We'll have to wait and see.
yes,
Right?
thank you, Ron. Yes, wonderful.
Okay.
Thank you so much. I believe that does answer the final question. I'm just going to be, I'll just take a quick look at the chat box to see if there are certain questions. All right, perfect. I would say, Rika, we can actually go ahead and have our attendees ask our questions. If they have access to a microphone, they can ask their questions live, and we'd be glad to answer them.
Hey guys, looks like there's no questions so far from our attendees. But for our attendees, if you guys want to have access to a mic and you wanted to speak to Ron or to Shrey directly, there is the raise hand icon or button at the bottom of your screen. It's pretty much near the Q&A icon as well. Just press that and you can get into the queue to answer. Or yeah, there you go. Oh, it just dropped out. Sorry, we just had a user one. Looks like they left. But yeah, if you guys have any questions, use the raise hand function and we'll give you access to the mic. Thank you.
All right, sounds good. Thank you so much, Rika. And as you know, just like Rika mentioned, if anyone has questions, you can use the raise hand functionality and we would be glad to answer any questions that you have live for either myself or Ron. You can also fully utilize the chat box as well as the Q&A tab for us to answer any questions that you might have. So we are just about 13 minutes to the end of the session. So I would say the most efficient would be to ask questions in person.
Actually, Richa would need to give access to Manije. Because I don't have host license. My apologies. So if Richa can give access to Manije, I'm just gonna poke her a bit. Just hang on a second.
While she's doing that, I can answer Paul and Bobby's questions. So possibly to sit in a class if you aren't assigned a certain teacher for your class. Usually what happens is we assign the instructors well in advance because they have to do the preparation for the course as well. So what ends up happening is we set out the schedule of the instructors. So we have little flexibility in regards to that. If you are registered in the program, of course, what ends up transpiring is, you're registered in the program. Usually you'll know who your instructor is for that module, and that's pretty much how it proceeds on.
Yes, thank you, Ron. I think partly to answer Paul's question, I may have answered it in some sort of sequence. If this is in relation to auditing a class, then unfortunately, unlike universities, because I know where the audit of a class originates and comes from, but we unfortunately it's a very structured program, so we sort of go in from a particular sequence and only for registered students at this time.
Looks like one of our participants, Manije, would like to ask a question. Go ahead, sure. Manije.
Hi, actually, I have a question from Sherry because I asked that I had a vocational education in accounting before in Canada, and I'm a citizen, but I asked your administration that is it acceptable as a post-secondary education, or should I take the English test? So I was wondering, but nobody applied. They replied to me, or they told me I should apply and then they would tell me, but I don't know what should I do. This is my question.
Okay, no, that's a great question, Manager. Thank you so much for sharing. Now, admissions team is partly right because this is usually done at the application vetting or review process. Because this would entail because when someone, let's say, if someone says that they've had a certain education or vocational education, it is still quite a broad topic. So it would require us to look at the credentials, review it, verify it, also consult our faculty department. So what I would state is that you do send us an email, maybe a new email with your subject, and that you're looking for if you're able to best explain exactly what you have done in the past in terms of education, then we can of course respond to you. So if you can just compose a new email and send it to info@ashtoncollege.ca, I can ensure that you are given an answer, so as to speak.
So I don't need to take the test before I apply because they may accept it.
Well, I think there's two issues here, Shrey, with manager. you have to, Manaja, you have to understand that there is an education requirement and there's also a language requirement, and they're not necessarily linked.
No, I do have my bachelor, though. I'm talking about the language test. That should I have?
That's why I brought it up. Yes.
So Ron, just let me answer that, manager.
Okay.
Just one last question. In terms of the policy, manager, as Ron just indicated, there is the education component requirement as well as language. Like I said, this is very specific to your application. So I would start by sending an inquiry as opposed to what we can particularly discuss on an information session, because we unfortunately wouldn't be able to comment on that without having some sort of understanding of your previous education background. So maybe start by sending us a fresh new email stating exactly what you've done, maybe the course that you've taken, the education institution, because it would also require us to look into this inquiry further. So
thank you very much.
You're
Thank you for it.
Of course, absolutely. Right. Any other questions that we have today?
Looks like we have Neely. Neely, we have given you access. Neely, I'm not sure if you're able to unmute your mic. Just go ahead and unmute it and you can ask your question live.
It's not a problem. If Neely, you're having an issue with your microphone, you could always type in your question in either the Q&A tab or the chat box, and we could always address your question in that manner as well. And of course, that applies, and that basically applies to all our attendees today.
Shrey, I do see a question. It's more of a
Yes.
question in regards to, I have my diploma from Alberta. Do I still need IELTS?
I think
Do I still need
just
IELTS?
yeah, that is something what we were just getting into, and I know that these are very important questions, but once again, these are also questions that we would need further review and inquiry in. So as I mentioned previously, do start by sending us an email and exactly outlining what you've done. The information on our website is actually quite accurate and clear on who requires an IELT, or sorry, an English language proficiency requirement, how it can be met. So if you haven't done so already, please do visit our IMCD page, and under the admission requirements, you'll not only find our policy on admissions, which goes into further detail on English language proficiency requirement, but also in what areas and how our applicants can meet those requirements. So if you have attended a previous post-secondary education, then there are certain sections of the policy that might apply to you versus the others. So please do look at our policy on admissions, because it is quite detailed, and it should be able to answer all your questions about the English language proficiency. Otherwise, like as I previously mentioned, please do send us an email at info@ashtoncollege.ca, and we can always address your inquiries in that manner as well. All right, so we do have another question here. All right, so in terms of flexibility, and now it depends if you are taking an online program, there is flexibility in the sense that the online webinars are recorded. But then once again, that does not negate you attending the live session. Recorded webinars, I just wanted to quickly touch base and state that recorded webinars are generally used for students that want to make notes. For example, if you have not had the chance to take notes while a webinar was live and in progress. Recorded webinars usually give that much of a flexibility towards students to make notes and review the information that was presented. Now, I would say it's never encouraged that students only watch the recorded webinars, because that is not what they're designed for. And it is not what we also basically require. There is an attendance policy to follow. And although watching the recorded webinars within 24 to 48 hours from when the live session does happen, you will gain attendance requirement. You must ensure that you are watching the live session, because a lot of times the live interaction between what you have with your instructors as well as peers is going to factor into your success in the program. So if you're not able to utilize that time between when your instructor is actually live, as well as your peers that would be engaging in that discussion, then you will not be able to gain benefit, or you would not be able to benefit from the program. Having said that, there is also a participation component. And that participation component is generally 10% of your overall final grade, and that is in each and every module. So how participation is assessed is that students, when they're attending live webinars, they would be engaging in conversation, and that is how participation is assessed. So if someone is not attending the live session, they will definitely lose that 10% of the overall final grade, and sometimes that can become passing or failing a module, to be very honest. So that is why participation grade should be taken very seriously, and it is then required in that sense to watch live webinars.
The other question was in regards to, well, what about books? What ends up happening is we have this, which is the Lauren, you'll find them on the outline in the syllabi. One is either this blue book that I just held up, which is published, the author is Mr. Lauren Waldman. It's published by LexisNexis. It basically has in this book, or you're using this orange and red book. Basically, one is written by Lauren Waldman, the other is written by Henry Goslett and B.J. Caruso. Basically, either of them, you don't have to get both. One is the mandatory reference book. So within the reference book, you have the Immigration Act, you have the immigration regulations. In regards to this book, the orange and black one, you have to purchase another book because it also has the Citizenship Act in it. With the Lauren Waldman book, it already does have the Citizenship Act in it. They also do deal with the Quebec immigration, as well as some of the free trade agreements. And so those are sort of the introduction. It also has some of the most relevant case law in regards to the various act and regulations that you will be called upon from time to time to read or to look at to see what the latest interpretation by the court is in regards to the act or the regs. We also have another book, we call it the Eamonn Book. It's a green book. And what it does, it has 16 chapters. And it divides it into, think of the 18 competencies, or let's say it divides it into the 16 areas that you would normally be examined on an entry to practice exam, or that you would be called upon to deal with in your everyday practice. So by the end of the course, you are also expected to complete all 16 chapters as well. What it is a translation from, I'll say, legal speak or government speak in regards to the act and regulations to try to provide you with their interpretation of what they're saying in the law. And with that, it does provide examples. It does have a series of review questions at the end of each chapter that your instructors can also go through with you. And so what you have to understand is sort of first layer is basically going through the act and the regs and the reference book. The second layer is sort of the Eamonn book. The third layer is going through with the webinar with your instructor, who is also going to be accessing each of the relevant websites as well and trying to drill down further for you, such that what ends up happening is it's like painting a room, and we're trying to get you to put 3 or 4 coats of paint on to have the understanding of that area.
All right, thank you, Ron. I think we're slightly pressed for time. I think we may have gone just a minute over our information session today. So I just want to thank everyone that was able to attend the information session, as well as ask your questions. Now, having said that, you might still have a lot of questions, and our apologies that because we are pressed for time, we couldn't answer your question. But please do get in touch with us, because we want to hear from you. So once again, the email address is info@ashtoncollege.ca, and our phone number is posted in the chat box as well for anyone that wants to make a quick note of that. We want to hear from you. And if you have any specific questions about your application, or if you want to gain further clarification of what the requirements are, please do get in touch with us. I just want to remind everyone once again is that if you are looking to attend the July 28th program, then our application deadline for that particular program, which is the IMCD part-time intake for July 28th, is actually tonight. So please do ensure that if you are looking to apply for that program, please get in your application as soon as possible. Otherwise, for all the future program entries, which is August as well as September, the final deadline, which includes your application as well as supporting documents, is Friday, July 24th. And I just want to stress the importance of that particular date, because we would not be accepting any further applications or documents beyond Friday, July 24th. So please do keep that in mind. And thank you. And I would just want to thank everyone, take the time to thank all that have, taken this time to attend the information session. And I wish everyone all the very best. And thank you very much, Ron, as well as Richa, Rita, and Rika in the background for facilitating this session. Thank you so very much.
Just one last thing I'll say is that the North American Free Trade Agreement, or USMAX, has only passed as of July. So no, the old version will be in the textbook or in the regulations. But what will happen is that the instructors will provide you by going online with the latest version of the Free Trade Agreement.
Perfect. All right. Thank you. Rika, over to you.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great evening.
All right. You as well.
Thank you.
Thank you once again, everyone.
Bye.